Shang-Chi, one of those. Its spelling is SHANG -CHI. So Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi.
It is a new Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Joining the MCU. This is all representation of the Asian culture. My people. You have, Black Panther. You also have, for women, Captain Marvel. Now is the Asian turn. It is our turn.
When's it gonna be the white man turn?
It's been white for a long time.
Just kidding.
Shang-Chi.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. I don't know the actor's name. Simu Liu.
I don't know.
Simu Liu. Awkwafina's in it.
Awkwafina.
Who else is in it? Benedict Wong, who does make a really important appearance at the end of the movie. What was your expectation? Okay, let's say this. When you first saw the trailer, what did you think of the trailer?
I wasn't all that intrigued or impressed. I was just like, sure, Marvel's running out of ideas. No offense to the character or anything. I was just like, all right, like the base has been set. Let's start doing more obscure things.
Yes.
And so, but in nice MCU fashion, they make it worth your while, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
I think the same reaction that you had. My wife had the same reaction. She kind of watched the trailer. She was kind of but she went in the movie and came out of it and she loved it. She thought it was.
I feel the same way I did about this as I do right now about Eternals. I'm like, I don't freaking need to watch.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't look. What the frick is that? They're a bunch of aliens now?
Well, maybe if you know the history of it. Should we go into the history of Eternal?
No, let's not.
So Shang-Chi is a character in the Marvel Universe now. He is a son of the crime boss who is named Wu Wang.
The Mandarin.
The real Mandarin. Although he doesn't go by that name, though. He never kind of say that he goes by many different names.
Yeah.
And he has these 10 rings. Now, the 10 rings in the comics is different than what the Marvel, the MCU is. The comics literally is a ring in each finger.
Oh, really?
And each finger has power of a different warrior, ancient warriors in it.
One ring to rule them all?
No, these are all lots of rings, but there's a different type of ring.
Is there a lord?
There is a lord.
Is there a well?
There's no well. There's no well, and there's no Floto.
Is there a proposal?
There's no relationship between Floto and Sam that really borderlines,
Alright.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyways,
those are all my ring jokes.
Yeah. So, but they changed it in the movie and make it into completely entire kind of the power works together. While in the comics, each individual rings have different powers that you can use differently. And so the premise of this movie is a father and son. It's almost a pretty basic premise, if you think about it. We've seen it before. Father's a crime lord, son wants to get away from it and gets pulled back, and they have to fight in the end. But what really interests for me is in this movie, I love this movie, not because I'm Asian, but because I felt like the way the story, the acting, and the action was all on par with everything I expected to be. So
yeah, I agree. I had fun. I also liked it. There's not a lot. There are a few problems I have with this movie.
Okay,
let's talk about the good.
Okay.
In order to explain the bad, I have to explain the good.
Okay, go for it.
The good is the action. There's a bus scene where there's some mixed martial arts and stuff like that, where it's it reminded me of my childhood when I used to watch Mr. Nice Guy, Project A, Who Am I, all the Jackie Chan movies. I loved those movies as a kid. And it reminded me of that. I was like, oh, sweet, Marvel's taking this into a little bit of a different direction. And then there's a dip toward the middle of the movie where it's a little more explanation, some exposition, if you will.
Exposition.
And then it goes into a faceless army versus another faceless army, and they fight in true Marvel fashion. That's where I think they screwed up. That's my problem with this movie. They should have kept the martial arts throughout the whole movie instead of just marbling it up at the very end.
Yeah. I actually agree with that part. I think the third act does dip a little bit because you get your normal, two army come together and fight, and the father and son is predictable. But I do love where they're going with this, and I'm not sure how they're going to connect this with the rest of the movies coming, on their slate, because this is going into like fantasy, like legends fantasy of like the Asian culture, like Crouching Tiger. You can bend air, you can use martial arts to be able to use air to fight. Like that scene, beautiful scene with the father and the mother when he goes into that bamboo forest and he meets her, and I love that scene. I thought that the way that's choreographed, the fighting and all that was beautiful, and there's a story behind those fightings that they did, and the love story of it.
So that's pretty much all I have to say. He's more excited about this movie than I am.
Well,
I still enjoyed it. It's just like
I think, to me, I agree with Paul. There are some things that I thought that kind of like they missed their mark. Marvel has this tendency to build their world and let the character take a back seat. There are scenes in there that doesn't really like you have to have it in there to connect the connective tissue into the Marvel universe. Like let's talk about the cage scene with Wong and Abomination. Like
Abomination being the guy Hulk fought in the other movie. So just so you know.
And Benedict does call him by that name, so it is the same character. Now whether it's going to be to play the same actor that was in that movie, we don't know. But doesn't matter. But for them to put that in there, kind of like takes you out of the movie, because you're like, oh, because you're in this this fantasy world with martial arts and this, and all of a sudden you bring in this Marvel characters in, and you're like,
oh yeah, this is Marvel.
Oh, this is a Marvel movie. Like, kind of have to remind us that this. Oh, they're connected, and I thought that was the weak part of the movie. And with Paul, I love. I agree with him. Like, the third act was kind of like really rushed. If you really go back and watch, it was rushed,
but also it like took too long. Like, I feel like the movie itself was pretty long, and I
didn't mind that though.
They rushed where they shouldn't have, and they dragged where they shouldn't have.
I guess that's.
Are you rushing or are you dragging?
Was any character in it that stood out to you?
This is hard for me to say. I liked Aquafina in this.
Oh,
because this is where all the humor was channeled through her. Usually it's like everyone's so funny.
Yeah.
But they used Aquafina the way they should have. She's the comic relief.
But I think, and that's the other thing. Okay, maybe I have more problem than I thought.
All right.
Paul's right. She carries the comedy aspect in this movie. It's on her shoulder, and sometimes it worked, and there were times that it didn't work for me.
Oh, for sure.
I think there are certain times that she missed, and certain times, and it's not all her fault. But I feel like they put all that comedy aspect into her shoulder, and she just couldn't carry the entire movie. And so, my favorite character in this, besides Shang-Chi, I think the dad is very, very well acted by the legend. I don't know his name, but he's a legend in the kung fu industry and movies. And so, I love his character. A lot of times when you get Marvel movies, you don't get good bad guys. Not a lot of complex into that character.
They're getting better at that.
To me, he was one of the best part of the movie. His acting, the way his emotion towards losing his wife and hearing the voice and trying to. He has one agenda. I thought his character was well done, and his acting was well done, and the fighting scenes with those rings are pretty bad.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
That's it.
That's all I got.
I love this movie. I'm gonna give this opening night on top. I think people should see it. It is probably gonna break Labor Day week box office.
Yeah.
It's at 90 million right now if I checked, and so
nice.
It's pretty good. So.
I also will give this opening night. I did enjoy it a lot.
So.
I just wish they just hadn't marveled it up.
I don't know. I didn't want them to marvel it up. That's the thing.
I know. I wish they hadn't.
No, they haven't. Okay, I agree with you.
Anyway, that's it.
Later, nerds.
Later.